The billing alert arrived at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, flagging an anomaly that would unravel everything I thought I knew about trust. I'm Montgomery Dresden, 42, environmental partner at our criminal defense boutique in New Orleans. 20 years of practice taught me to spot inconsistencies in legal documents the way a surgeon spots irregular tissue. This particular inconsistency made my coffee taste like ash. The case management system showed partner meeting minutes from last Thursday's strategy session. Standard procedure. Nothing unusual about Jonas Whitman documenting our discussions about the Riverside contamination case. He'd been our most reliable associate for 3 years, former clerk to Judge Harrison, meticulous with details. Except the minutes contained statements I never made. According to the digital record, I'd allegedly recommended settling the Riverside matter for $2 million. The timestamp showed 4:15 p.m. during our weekly partner meeting. I remembered that meeting clearly. I'd argued against any settlement under $8 million, citing the extensive groundwater damage and our client's strong position. The document bore my electronic signature, my login credentials, my approval timestamp. I pulled the audio recording from our conference room system, standard practice for complex cases. The playback confirmed my memory. At 4:15 p.m. I was discussing discovery motions, not settlement figures. Jonas had been taking notes on his laptop, nodding along with the conversation. The billing system showed the document was last modified at 11:23 p.m. that same evening, long after the meeting ended, long after everyone had gone home. I cross-referenced the access logs. Jonas's credentials showed continuous activity until 11:47 p.m., unusual for someone who typically left by 6. The modification history revealed surgical edits to 3 specific paragraphs, each containing my alleged statements about case strategy. My hands remained steady as I printed the 20 years of courtroom work had taught me to control physical reactions, but my mind was racing through implications. If Jonas was altering partner meeting minutes, what else had he changed? How many client strategies had been misrepresented? How many cases had been compromised? The Riverside contamination case represented our largest contingency fee arrangement. $8 million in potential recovery. Our client trusted us with their future, their community's health, their children's safety. I opened the client communication logs. Every email, every phone call, every strategy discussion was documented in our system. If Jonas had access to partner meeting minutes, he had access to everything. The search results made my stomach drop. 17 separate documents showed recent modifications, all bearing Jonas's digital fingerprints, all occurring during late evening hours when the office was empty. Our entire case strategy had been systematically altered, one document at a time. The betrayal started 6 months earlier, though I didn't recognize it then. Jonas Whitman had joined our firm straight from Judge Morrison's chambers, carrying glowing recommendations and an impressive understanding of criminal procedure. At 32, he possessed the kind of analytical mind that made partners take notice. His clerkship had exposed him to complex white-collar cases, environmental crimes, and the intricate dance between prosecution and defense. They taught me how to cross-examine hostile witnesses effectively, but they never prepared me for betrayal from within. I'd been the one to champion his hiring. During his interview, Jonas had demonstrated remarkable insight into our Riverside contamination case, suggesting discovery strategies that impressed even our senior partners. His background in environmental law seemed perfect for our expanding practice. The first warning sign appeared in March. A client called Marca Gogres, confused about our settlement position. Mrs. Penelope Hartwell, whose family had suffered health complications from the contaminated groundwater, asked why we were suddenly interested in accepting a $4 million offer. I assured her we weren't. Our strategy remained unchanged: pursue maximum damages through trial. The call troubled me, but I attributed it to miscommunications somewhere in the chain. The second incident occurred during a deposition in April. Opposing counsel referenced statements I'd allegedly made during partner meetings, statements that contradicted our established strategy. When I denied making them, their attorney produced meeting minutes bearing my electronic signature. I requested copies immediately. The documents looked authentic, complete with proper formatting and digital timestamps. But the content felt wrong. Subtle shifts in language, strategic positions I'd never advocated, settlement figures I'd never discussed. Jonas had been present at every meeting referenced in those minutes. By May, the pattern became undeniable. Client communications were being misrepresented. Case strategies were shifting without my knowledge. Settlement discussions were occurring behind closed doors. With my apparent approval, I began documenting everything. Recording devices in conference rooms. Backup copies of all digital files. Screenshots of original documents before they could be altered. The investigation consumed my evenings. Our case management system, LegalTrack Pro, maintained detailed audit logs of every user action. Each document modification, each access event, each login and logout was recorded with precise timestamps. Jonas's activity patterns revealed the truth. While I was in court or meeting with clients, he was accessing confidential files. While I was at home with my family, he was modifying partner meeting minutes. While I slept, he was systematically undermining our cases. The Riverside contamination case wasn't his only target. I discovered alterations in 12 other active files. Personal injury cases where settlement amounts had been reduced. Criminal defense strategies that had been weakened. Client communications that had been sanitized to remove aggressive negotiation tactics. Each modification was subtle, professional, nearly undetectable. Jonas understood our systems, our procedures, our vulnerabilities. His year as Judge Morrison's clerk had taught him how legal documents should look, how they should read, how they should flow. But he'd made one critical error. The billing system automatically backed up all documents at midnight each day. These backup files were stored on a separate server, accessible only to senior partners. Jonas had modified the active documents, but he couldn't touch the archived versions. I spent 3 weeks comparing active files to their archived counterparts. The differences were staggering. Hundreds of alterations across dozens of cases. Settlement positions weakened. Negotiation strategies compromised. Client interests systematically undermined. The financial impact was devastating. Conservative estimates suggested our clients had lost over $2 million in potential recoveries due to these altered strategies. The Riverside case alone represented a $4 million swing from our original position to the compromised settlement figures. I traced the pattern back to Jonas's first week at the firm. The alterations had begun immediately, targeting our highest value cases first. He'd been methodical, patient, professional. A long-term strategy designed to maximize damage while minimizing detection. The motive remained unclear. Was he working for opposing counsel? Had he been planted by a competitor? Was this simple greed or something more sophisticated? I needed proof that would stand up in court. Screenshots and audit logs were a start, but I needed more. I needed to catch him in the torso. The opportunity came on a Thursday evening in late May. Jonas had stayed late, claiming to work on discovery motions for the Riverside case. I waited in my car across the street, watching the office lights. At 10:30 p.m., I used my keycard to enter through the back entrance. The building was silent except for the hum of computers and air conditioning. Jonas's office light was on, his door slightly ajar. I activated the recording app on my phone and approached quietly. Through the gap, I could see him at his computer. Multiple windows open on his screen. LegalTrack Pro was active, showing the Riverside case file. He was editing a document I'd created that morning. My settlement strategy memo was being systematically altered. Where I'd written, "Reject any offer below $8 million, Jonas was typing, "Consider offers above $4 million. Where I'd outlined aggressive discovery tactics, he was inserting language about cooperation and compromise. I watched him work for 17 minutes. Professional, efficient, thorough. He knew exactly which documents to target, which phrases to change, which strategies to undermine. When he finished, Jonas saved the document and logged out of the system. I retreated to the stairwell and waited for him to leave. 20 minutes later, his footsteps echoed through the empty hallway. I had everything I needed. Video of the alterations, audio recordings of his keystrokes, digital proof of his systematic betrayal. But I also had a problem. Jonas Whitman wasn't just altering documents for personal gain. He was destroying our clients' cases, undermining their trust, and compromising their futures. The scope of his betrayal extended far beyond simple theft. He'd stolen something more valuable than money. He'd stolen justice itself. The confrontation came at 7:15 a.m. the next morning. I arrived early, printed the point, and waited in the conference room. When Jonas walked in with his usual coffee and confident smile, I was ready. "We need to talk," I said, sliding the printed screenshots across the mahogany table. His face went through a fascinating progression. Confusion, recognition, calculation, then resignation. He sat down slowly, studying the documents like a chess player analyzing a losing position. "How long have you known?" he asked. 2 weeks of active investigation. But looking back, probably 6 months of subconscious suspicion. Jonas nodded, almost appreciatively. The Riverside case gave me away, didn't it? Too aggressive, too obvious. Among other things. The question now is damage control. I opened my laptop and showed him the Legal Track Pro audit logs. 47 cases over 18 months. Settlement negotiations sabotaged. Discovery strategies compromised. Client communications misrepresented to partners. The financial impact is approximately $2.3 million in reduced settlements, I continued, but the professional liability exposure is much higher. Jonas leaned back in his chair. "You're recording this conversation." "Yes." "Smart. Always the thorough one, Montgomery." I waited. In criminal defense, silence often produced better confessions than questions. "It started small," Jonas said finally. "Judge Melancon's chambers needed inside information on our defense strategies. Nothing major, just enough to help prosecutors prepare better arguments. Judge Melancon retired 8 months ago. The arrangement continued with his successor. Different judge, same system. The scope was expanding. This wasn't just document alteration. This was systematic judicial corruption, involving multiple cases and court personnel." "Who else knows?" I asked. "About my involvement?" "Just you." "About the broader arrangement?" "That's above my clearance level." I made notes while he talked. Names, dates, case numbers. Everything would need verification, but Jonas was providing a roadmap to a much larger conspiracy. "The partners will need to know immediately," I said. "Penelope Whitman is already aware." The words hit like a physical blow. Penelope, our managing partner, the attorney who'd recruited me 5 years ago. The woman who'd mentored my transition from prosecutor to defense counsel. How long has she known? About me specifically, since last Tuesday. About the arrangement in general. She helped design it. I closed my laptop and gathered the documents. The betrayal had layers I hadn't anticipated. Jonas was a symptom, not the disease. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we follow protocol. Bar complaint, criminal referral, client notifications, the full process." "And Penelope?" "That depends on what the investigation reveals." I left Jonas in the conference room and walked directly to Penelope's office. She was reviewing case files, her usual morning routine. When I knocked, she looked up with genuine warmth. "Montgomery, good morning. How's the Riverside preparation going? We need to discuss Jonas Whitman's activities." Her expression didn't change, but something shifted behind her eyes. A calculation, a decision being made in real time. "Close the door," she said. I sat across from her desk, the same chair where she'd offered me partnership 3 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "How much do you know?" she asked. "Document alterations, settlement sabotage, judicial coordination, 18 months of systematic case manipulation. Penelope nodded slowly. Jonas was supposed to be more careful. So you confirm his allegations? I confirm that this firm has arrangements with certain judicial chambers. Information flows both ways. We provide insights into defense strategies. They provide guidance on judicial preferences. That's not legal guidance, Penelope. That's corruption. That's survival, Montgomery. Criminal defense in Orleans Parish isn't a level playing field. We adapt or we lose clients. I studied her face, looking for the mentor I'd respected. Instead, I saw a stranger who'd been hiding in plain sight for 5 years. The clients don't know their cases are being compromised. The clients get competent representation within a complex system. Our win rate is still above average, because you're controlling both sides of the equation. Penelope stood and walked to her window, looking out at the French Quarter. This conversation is privileged, Montgomery. Attorney-client privilege, work product doctrine, partnership confidentiality. None of those apply to criminal conspiracy. Prove it's criminal. Prove it's conspiracy. Prove it's not just aggressive advocacy within established norms. She was right about the legal challenges. Proving corruption required of explicit quid pro quo arrangements. Judicial preferences and defense strategies occupied gray areas that prosecutors rarely pursued. But I had Jonas's confession. I had the digital. I had 18 months of documented case manipulation. I'm filing a bar complaint this afternoon, I said. Against Jonas? Against both of you. Penelope returned to her desk and opened a thick file folder. Before you do that, consider your own position. Partnership agreements include loyalty clauses, confidentiality obligations, non-compete restrictions. Are you threatening me? I'm reminding you of your professional obligations. I stood to leave. My obligation is to the clients, not to the partnership. Montgomery. Her voice stopped me at the door. Think carefully about your next steps. This firm has resources, connections, influence. So does the Louisiana State Bar Association. I walked out of her office and directly to my computer. The bar complaint forms were straightforward. Attorney misconduct, client prejudice, judicial corruption. I filled out separate complaints for Jonas and Penelope, attached the digital, and submitted them electronically. The confirmation emails arrived within minutes. Case numbers, investigation timelines, preliminary review schedules. The machinery of professional discipline was now in motion. My phone rang at 2:30 p.m. The caller ID showed ARDC investigation. Mr. Dresden, this is Henry Patel, account recovery investigator with the Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission. We've received your complaints and need to schedule an interview. How quickly can we meet? This afternoon, if you're available. The allegations involve ongoing client prejudice, which requires immediate attention. We met at 4 p.m. in a neutral conference room downtown. Henry Patel was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with the methodical demeanor of someone who'd investigated hundreds of attorney misconduct cases. Walk me through the discovery process, he said, setting up a digital recorder. I provided a chronological account. The billing discrepancies, the Legal Track Pro investigation, the video of Jonas altering documents. Henry took detailed notes and requested copies of all supporting materials. The managing partner's involvement complicates the investigation, he said. We'll need to interview clients, review case files, and coordinate with the district attorney's office. Criminal charges? Potentially. Judicial corruption falls under state criminal statutes. But we start with professional discipline and see where the leads. Henry's investigation moved quickly. Within a week, he'd interviewed 6 clients whose cases showed of manipulation. All confirmed that their settlement expectations had been systematically lowered by the firm's recommendations. The Bar Association issued interim suspensions for both Jonas and Penelope pending full disciplinary hearings. The firm's operations were placed under supervised administration while the investigation continued. I found myself in an unexpected position. As the only remaining partner without disciplinary action, I became the de facto managing attorney for 37 active cases and 4 associate attorneys who needed guidance. The responsibility was overwhelming, but it also provided purpose. These clients deserved competent representation, regardless of their previous attorney's misconduct. 3 weeks after filing the complaints, Henry called with an update. The district attorney is filing criminal charges against Jonas Whitman and Penelope Whitman. Conspiracy, fraud, obstruction of justice. The judicial corruption investigation is expanding to include 2 sitting judges. What about the clients? Civil restitution will be handled separately. The Bar Association is establishing a client protection fund for cases where settlements were compromised. Justice was slow, but it was moving in the right direction. 18 months later, I stood in the conference room of my new practice on Magazine Street. The morning light filtered through tall windows, illuminating case files arranged in neat stacks across the mahogany table. Dresden & Associates had grown from a solo practice to a 4-attorney firm specializing in criminal defense and legal ethics violations. The irony wasn't lost on me that my expertise in partnership betrayal had become a marketable skill. Jonas Whitman received a 3-year federal sentence for conspiracy and fraud. His law license was permanently revoked. Penelope Whitman negotiated a plea agreement, resulting in 18 months imprisonment and mandatory restitution of $847,000 to affected clients. The judicial corruption investigation had expanded beyond our case. 2 sitting judges faced federal charges, and the Louisiana Supreme Court implemented new protocols for ex parte communications and case assignment procedures. My testimony before the State Bar Association led to enhanced monitoring systems for law firm financial management. I helped implement grievance ombuds programs in bar associations across 3 states, creating early intervention mechanisms for partnership disputes. The Client Protection Fund had distributed $1.2 million to victims of the conspiracy. Most clients received full restitution for compromise settlements, though the emotional damage took longer to heal. My new partners were carefully vetted attorneys with impeccable ethical records. We implemented transparent financial systems, quarterly ethics reviews, and mandatory continuing education in professional responsibility. The case management software displayed 31 active files, each one handled with the meticulous attention that my former clients deserved but never received. Trust, once broken, required constant vigilance to rebuild. Henry Patel had been promoted to senior investigator at the Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission. We maintained professional contact, occasionally consulting on complex ethics violations that crossed jurisdictional boundaries. The old firm's office building on Poydras Street had been sold to satisfy creditor claims. I drove past it sometimes, noting how quickly the brass nameplate had been replaced with a commercial real estate sign. Recovery wasn't just about justice or restitution. It was about rebuilding faith in the legal profession, one ethical decision at a time. My morning routine now included reviewing every billing entry, every case note, every client communication. Paranoia had evolved into professional discipline. The silence in my new office felt different than the oppressive quiet that had preceded the discovery of the conspiracy. This silence contained possibility rather than dread. At 6:47 p.m., I locked the office door and walked toward my car. The French Quarter hummed with evening activity, tourists and locals blending in the familiar rhythm of New Orleans street life. My phone remained silent. No mysterious alerts, no billing discrepancies, no digital anomalies requiring investigation. It was finally over, and the silence felt earned.